All right, let's dive into a really fascinating and, let's be honest, pretty controversial topic in global economics: trade protectionism. The big question we're tackling today is this: is it a necessary shield for a country's economy, or is it more like a cage that actually holds it back? I mean, it sounds like a riddle, right? Why on earth would a government go out of its way to make stuff more expensive for the very people it's supposed to serve? This question, it really gets to the absolute heart of the whole debate. And trust me, the answer is way more complex than you might think. Well, that puzzle has a name: trade protectionism. And its entire goal, its reason for being, is to act like a shield for local companies, protecting them from a potential flood of competition coming in from all over the world. So here's the thing you got to remember: this isn't some accident, it's a deliberate strategy. Governments use specific policies to, put a thumb on the scale, making it harder for foreign products to compete with the stuff made at home. But how exactly do they pull that off? Well, they've got a few key tools in their toolkit. The most common one you'll hear about is a tariff. It's basically just a tax on goods that are imported. Then you've got import quotas, which put a hard cap, a limit, on how much of something can be brought into the country. And finally, there are subsidies, which is when the government actually gives local producers some financial help to level the playing field. So, okay, they have these tools, but why? In a world that feels more connected than ever, would a country choose to build these kinds of economic walls? Let's take a look at the case for protection. Now, if you ask a supporter, they're going to tell you it's all about protecting people and securing the future. The number one argument is that it saves local jobs from being shipped overseas to places with cheaper labor. It can also be used to nurture what they call infant industries, new sectors that just aren't strong enough yet to go head-to-head with global giants. It gives them some breathing room. And finally, it's used to protect sectors that are considered vital for national security, like steel or making sure you can grow your own food. Okay, let's make this super simple. Take a look at the slide with me. In the column on the left, without a tariff, that foreign product is $100. It's obviously the cheaper choice. But now look what happens when you slap a 25% tariff on it. Its price jumps to $125. All of a sudden, that local product at $120 looks like the better deal. Just like that, the whole game has changed. That's a tariff in action. But if it can protect jobs and help out local companies, what's the catch? There's always a catch, right? Well, that protective shield can cast a pretty big shadow, and it often leads to some serious unintended consequences. First and foremost, you, the consumer, end up paying higher prices. You feel it in your wallet. Second, other countries don't just take this lying down. They often hit back with their own tariffs, and that can spark these really damaging trade wars. And maybe the biggest long-term risk is this: when your local industries are shielded from competition, they can get, lazy. They become less efficient, less innovative. After all, there's just not as much pressure to be the absolute best. And this quote really hits the nail on the head. The very shield that was meant to protect an industry can become this cozy comfort zone that actually makes it weaker over time. Without that fire of global competition, companies can just stagnate. So enough with the theory. How does this actually play out in the real world? Let's look at a really recent and very debated example: the steel and aluminum tariffs the United States put in place back in 2018. So here's the chain reaction. The U.S. put tariffs on foreign steel. Step 2, American steel producers were shielded, and yeah, they benefited. And this is a huge but, what about the American companies that use steel? Think about car makers or appliance manufacturers. All of a sudden, they had to pay more for their most basic materials. Their costs went up, which actually made them less competitive. And that right there, that is the key takeaway. Protectionism is almost never a simple win. It is always, always a trade-off. In this case, helping one domestic industry directly hurt another one. You're constantly trying to balance these competing interests. This whole idea of a trade-off is at the very heart of a much larger global debate about economics. So let's zoom out for a second and see the bigger picture. You can really think of it as two competing visions for the world. On one side, you've got trade liberalization. This is the idea pushed by groups like the World Trade Organization. The goal is fewer barriers, more open competition, let the best person win. On the other side, you have trade protectionism, which says, no, wait, let's prioritize our national industries, using those tools like tariffs. For decades, it really seemed like the whole world was moving towards liberalization. But the real story isn't so black and white. The truth is, most nations today do a bit of both. It's a hybrid approach. They'll engage in a lot of free trade, but they'll still keep some protectionist policies in their back pocket to guard those industries they think are just too important to lose. It's a constant balancing act. Which brings us right back to our final and maybe most important question. We know protectionism has costs. It costs consumers, it costs other industries, it can cost innovation, but it also has benefits, or at least perceived benefits, like saving jobs in one specific area. So, at the end of the day, the real question isn't, does protectionism work, but rather, what's the right price to pay for it? And that's a question every single country has to wrestle with.